Good evening and welcome to another night of Chat It Up featuring the art industry's leaders and exhibiting artists at the Coral Springs Museum of Art. I'm your host, Petra Galland, Assistant Director, and tonight we're speaking with board-certified art therapist Raquel Farrell-Kirk. However, before we begin tonight's community event, the museum would like to thank the following: the Florida Department of State Division of Cultural Affairs, the National Endowment for Humanities Florida Humanities Council, the Broward County Cultural Division and the Broward County Board of County Commissioners, the City of Coral Springs, and the museum's Board of Directors, Scott Brook, Joy Carter, Joshua Simmons, Sean Sarah, and Larry Vignola, and the museum's members. Their support to the Coral Springs Museum of Art provides the community engaging art experiences like this evening's Chat It Up. We hope you enjoy this evening's special opportunity. It provides the community engaging opportunities for asking questions with tonight's guests during our Q&A session at the end of the presentation. And without further ado, allow me to introduce to you tonight's very special guest and friend, Raquel Farrell-Kirk. Hey, lady.
Hi, good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're so glad to have you.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, this is
my favorite thing.
It is. It's a special opportunity for the community to chat with you, for the Coral Springs Museum of Art and us to chat with you as well, and for two Trini girls to hang out, right, in our Trini heritage. So, tell us a little bit about what, tonight we're talking about art therapy, and there's not a better time than right now during COVID to talk about art therapy. Tell me a little bit about what it is and what brought you to art therapy.
Sure, absolutely. So art therapy is really like its name sounds. It's a combination of art and more familiar modes of psychotherapy. So it's the idea that we can use the art making process to really make that like the cornerstone, the central part of how we're going to take someone through therapy, how we're going to work on things, how we're going to communicate with one another in therapy. As far as what brought me to it, honestly, my indecisive nature. I was an art history major and a psychology major in undergrad, and I knew I needed to go to grad school, and I really couldn't pick between those two loves, art and the psychology, and art therapy meant I didn't really have to choose. So it was a perfect fit for me.
That is a perfect fit. And how long have you been doing art therapy?
Oh, well, see, in my mind, I just got out of grad school. But the reality is I have been doing art therapy for probably about 20 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. I'm sure that things have changed too over the years, I suspect. What are some of the evolving pieces in art therapy that have changed?
I think one of the most exciting things that's changed is seeing the recognition for the field. That's out there, because the more recognized it is, the better we are able to recruit clinicians, and then the more people we can serve, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like been the best kept secret, and I'm really happy that it's not such a secret anymore.
Yeah. I feel like in the last 15 to 20 years, it really has sort of really blossomed into this major field that people are recognizing and people are using for therapeutic reasons. How did you get connected to the Coral Springs Museum of Art and its art therapy sessions?
So actually, and this is a good tip for anybody, watching, listening, trying to start a career, always network, always help out when you can. You never know. Because what happened, I was at one point the president of the Florida Art Therapy Association, our state chapter. And while I was in that role, a lovely woman by the name of Julia Andrews reached out to me and asked for some professional help with an exhibit she was working on that was going to look at how art helped people cope with problems and challenges. And I helped her out and loved the partnership, and we kind of went our separate ways. And lo and behold, a few years later, she became the director at the museum and said, hey, I know this art therapist who could help us with this program that we're getting off the ground. And we reconnected.
Wow, that's incredible. And from there, the museum really has created and blossomed into 3 different programming art therapy sessions, which would be art for warriors, art for educators, and art and healing. So tell us a little bit about that programming.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been one of my favorite things about it is that it's been a very organic evolution. It's been very much in response to things that we learned and needs that we saw, which I think is one of the best ways to grow something. It means it didn't come from us or some predetermined agenda. It really came from what we saw was working and what people told us they needed. So it began with the Art for Warriors program. The Coral Springs Museum of Art had received that grant, and they had actually run one version or one iteration of the program prior to connecting with me. And they decided that they really wanted to add an art therapist to it. So I got involved, and at the time, it was a grant-funded project that we proposed would last 6 weeks.
Wow.
And it's been the longest 6 weeks because that was 5 years ago.
I was going to say, looking at my clock here.
Yeah.
So it's been about you say 5 or 6 years now?
Probably 6. Yeah, probably closer to 6. So it started off with the Art for Warriors program. And the museum was really resourceful and committed. So they kind of kept getting grants and funding to continue it. So we kept going. And then the community, as we all know, was so devastatingly impacted with the shooting at Stoneman Douglas.
Right.
And the leadership at the museum really, reached out to me. I tell people all the time, you would think it would have been the therapist, right, that reached out, but It absolutely was the museum that reached out to me and said, this is our community and we really want to figure out what to do. What can we do? And so we put our heads together and thought about what role we thought we could serve, what need was out there, and what we could serve, what we could fit. That we were fortunate enough that there were other resources popping up. So we were able to kind of figure out what was our role going to be. And we decided that we would open the museum doors to the community for drop-in art therapy, like an open art studio. And we pulled together, it's nothing short of amazing how quickly people in the community responded. We pulled together, I think, 20-something different volunteers to make sure that all day long there were art therapists, music therapists, trauma therapists on site for people to come in. And that was really well received and really did seem to provide, I think, a nice gathering place, kind of a unique source of support. And the museum, the commitment continued. And just like they had with my little 6-week program, they kept the little engine that little staff that you guys have, they just kept at it and got the program established to where it could be ongoing weekly groups. And like I said, responding to the needs of the community, we divided the group so that there was healing with art, which gave teens and students in the area their own place to gather, their own place to talk about how it impacted them to live through something like that in the community, whether they attended that school or not, how it impacted them, and art for educators, which allowed all the staff and personnel at the school to have their space to talk about their needs.
Right. And now here's an example of one of the activities, or some of the participants as well. And I believe this is Art for Warriors. Tell us a little bit more about Art for Warriors and that program. And I know that we mentioned a little bit, but how has that really, I know initially there's been many incarnations of this program. And now we've come kind of, I think, to its pinnacle, which is what we're doing right now. And of course, right now it's a virtual session. But I know this was when we were in-house. Tell us about this particular project.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad that you said you feel like the program's at its pinnacle, because I do feel like the program is really meeting one of the biggest needs, which is the connection and the support. And so in this night in particular, I remember that evening and that art project and that person and that whole process. And one of my favorite things about that evening was this person's very comfortable with artistic media and artistic processes. It's a hobby and it's a technical skill that she has. And people were really watching her be creative, right? She came up with the idea that she could pour paints and spread them with a paper towel and mix colors, and watching what just naturally happens when people are making art around each other was really, really amazing. And that piece was really all about, I don't know if you can tell, but it's like a profile and all those colors are shooting out from the mouth. And so it was really expressing a lot of what our warriors, as our program calls them, a lot of what our military and other people in those fields, a lot of what they keep inside. And that feeling of what if they could just, open up and let it all out. So there was a lot of expression and a lot of inspiration that other people drew from the process, and also from the vulnerability of someone being willing to put that, into a picture and talk about it and admit that that's what the picture was about.
Right. It's incredible how people kind of come together and share that way. I think that it's sort of, as you were mentioning, the vulnerability factor goes down when you're using a different modality, such as art therapy. Can we go to the next picture, please? And this is, I think, art for educators. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, sure. I will admit that I was really surprised by how much the educators seemed to need this space and continue to need it. So maybe not surprising in the aftermath of a community trauma, but I have learned a lot about all sorts of different pressures and stressors that these educators face. And that group over time has really grown and deepened. And right now, educators have a whole new kind of pressure and stress to pivot to. And so it's found a new life that way, where it's still that support group, it's still that like-minded community, but now it can kind of help them through this new challenge that we didn't even foresee when we made the group.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's, yeah, COVID is really hitting hard on teachers, families, students, administrators. Yeah. Absolutely. Can we see the next one, please, Natasha? Oh, this is one of my favorites. This is the mask activity, right? Tell us about the mask. This is, I think, really poignant, this activity.
So masks are probably one of the most popular and one of the most powerful art therapy interventions that's used. And it's because there's something really universal about it. We all wear masks, right? We just do. They're part of life. If I came on here tonight and you asked me, how are you? And I started talking about, well, my dog died last week. And this isn't the place, right? So we all know how to kind of navigate the spaces we're in and the people we're around, which kind of boils down to a mask sometimes. The problem is when someone feels really stuck in that mask, or they don't have a place and a way to put it down. And so in art therapy, we can use the mask to help people explore that dynamic. What is it that you are portraying on that mask? And what is it that's beneath it? And how are you figuring out a healthy way to, pick that mask up and put it down? But it's also very tactile, like you can see, right? You get plaster on your fingers. It's wet, cold. So I think anytime you can, engage a lot of senses, you are, you can't help but be present. You kind of zone out. You're thinking about the plaster. You're feeling it. It's just a different experience.
It's also that physical connection to what isn't physical. It's the physical connection to what to the mask that you are wearing on a daily basis and connecting to it or owning it in a sense and understanding it. And I know that we have some examples too of what some of the masks look like that came out. Yep. Did any of the participants explain a little bit about what these masks represented for them?
Actually, the one with one eye open and one eye closed, it's actually a bandage. It's the way the person explained it. And it's one of my favorite examples of how, and you alluded to this earlier, you very rightly pointed out that we're a little more vulnerable when we're using this modality. And that's one of the things that art therapists love and talk about. We can't defend as easily in art. You ask me how I'm doing, I'm always going to say, fine. You ask me to draw a picture of how I'm doing, it might come out. That gentleman explained, I just put a bandage around the mask because there was a line there in the plaster. It didn't mean anything. Thought, okay. So I said, well, now that it's done, does it remind you of anything? And he launched into this very detailed story of, and this was an older gentleman, of when he was much younger and had been in active service and had been injured on that particular side of his head where the dot in the mask is, where the eyes closed, and how they bandaged him, and recounted it in great detail, but then ended with, but I just put the bandage there because there was already a line in the plaster. Didn't mean anything. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a great example of something that needed to come out and how the art brought it out of him. Yeah.
No, I could see that. It's really powerful stuff. And I know during I think in November, there's sometimes there's the art show that we work with Northwest Regional Library, correct?
Yes. Exhibiting has become a really important part of this group and this process. And I love that it allows our veterans to really step into a new identity as an artist. It's really powerful for them.
It is. It really is. And it's great that we collaborate. That's Coral Springs Museum of Art collaborates with, the Northwest Regional Library in Coral Springs. Tell me now, let's talk about those of us who are at home. We're all stuck at home. I mean, I wish we were in front of each other eating some roti with some birdies on top right now, or maybe doubles, but unfortunately we're not, and we're at home. So tell us a fun, or it doesn't have to be fun, but an activity that engages us as we're all going through what COVID is doing to us. It's really, and it's interesting because it's always playing a part in all of our Chatted Up series, and how COVID and the pandemic has affected whether they're exhibitions or traveling, their tours and so forth. And tell us, we're all affected in essence. What can we do at home that's simple and easy and can help a sister out?
Well, I would say before we even get to what art thing you can do, I was just sharing this with one of the Art for Warriors groups. One of the things I think we all need to do is take some pressure off of ourselves at this time. There's a message, a really well-intentioned message about what are you going to do with your quarantine time, right? Are you going to learn that instrument that you always wanted to? Are you going to, learn how to bake bread from scratch? Or, if I get one more sourdough starter email.
I know. It's
a really well-intentioned message to help us make the most of it and have a focus. But I think it's transformed into like a pressure. And there's a lot of talk within the mental health professional community that this is basically a trauma that people are living through. And when you're in the trauma still, you really don't get the full impact, right? You may not have realized that this is a trauma that's having an impact on you. And so it may not be the time to feel like you're supposed to be your best self. So that would be my first thing. Just everybody give yourself some grace, give the people around you some grace. Maybe some of us, like, this is the moment we've been waiting for to shine and bust out the apron, but maybe some of us we just need to get through it, and that's okay too, take a little pressure off.
I like that. Thank you, Raquel. I think that's a very important statement for all of our viewers tonight.
And I think that will also change too. When we started this process, at least I did, and I think many people did, we kind of thought we would just kind of have to, hold your nose and grin and bear it, and then it would all be over really quick. And, we're months and months and months into this. And so the way you're dealing with it might have changed and might come and go. You might go through periods where you're all about baking and being productive. And then you might go through periods where you're kind of, in a valley, and that's okay too. As far as art materials, it's been really neat to get creative about materials and activities that people can do easily at home. So I'm going to offer 2 that I think are great for people to try, and that you don't have to have any artistic, oh, I can't draw, or just put that away. It has nothing to do with it. So,
okay.
Yeah, everybody can exhale now. So one of my favorites is to use the objects in your home. So go around and gather a few objects, and if you're going to do this to share with someone, which I encourage because all of your friends need things to do and connections to, right? So text a friend, say, hey, I heard about this art activity. Let's give it a try. Why not? Gather a still life of objects in your home that you think represent you and take a snapshot of it with your phone. So is there a meaningful photograph? Is there a favorite, piece of jewelry that has a sentimental value? Is there a book that really says something about you? How would you make a still life of objects in your home that really represent you? And who would you share that still life with? Maybe there's something in there that they don't know about you. Maybe even your family in your home, right? They see that hairbrush on the dresser every day. They don't know that it was your grandma's hairbrush and that's why you have it there, or, So I think that's
true.
A good one.
That is a good one. I like that. It makes me think of, I feel like people are starting to do that art with the remote connections, and behind them, sometimes you see themselves. It's like their true self. And
now you're making me self-conscious.
I don't know what that says about me. But it's interesting to see what is behind people and what connections they have with those objects. It's really quite interesting. But I love that. I think it's a much more intimate activity to take that snapshot and to really focus on those pieces that are so poignant to you, and only choose and giving yourself like 3 to 5 pieces. Yeah. Like that's it, not the whole kit kat and caboodle, So yeah, I like that activity.
And if you have kids, you can adapt it to the colors, in the color wheels. Let's see if we can make a color wheel with stuff we found at home and arrange them in a big circle color wheel on the floor. What can we do for red and yellow? So, you can adapt that use of your objects in a new way for yourself, for your kids, and really get everybody involved. But I've also recommended to people that they make something that you can look at and maybe use as a little touchstone. Dare I say, like a little inspiration to help, get us through. And I don't know about you, but I am still getting junk mail that has not stopped.
I know. I'm like, how is this happening?
So let's use our junk mail, right? So if you are getting catalogs, or you have old magazines laying around, or you have old birthday cards and Christmas cards, I always keep them with the best of intentions, but really they're just sitting in a box. Right?
I know.
So gather those and use them, repurpose them into a collage, and give yourself a theme. An easy one is just what's inspiring to you, what's uplifting to you, what makes you happy. And don't overthink it. Yeah. Much like the 3 to 5 objects, give yourself 15 minutes to pick the images out, or 30, depending on your time, so that you don't overthink it. I'm just going to look and grab and tear out all the words and pictures that make me happy right now looking at them. And then you put them together, you've repurposed, you've upcycled, you've made a new piece of art. And if you put it on your refrigerator, hopefully it's something that boosts your mood when you walk by.
Yeah, I like that. Inspires you. I'm all for putting things together to inspire oneself, especially when it's words and images, so that you see it on a daily basis to motivate you, to provide you goals, inspire you on a daily basis. Those are great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Now, before, I know that you and I have talked about this prior, and making sure that we do a breathing exercise at the end would be a lovely thing. But before we jump into that, I do want to just tell everybody that you will be providing some therapeutic art therapy sessions during our Smithsonian exhibition at the Coral Springs Museum of Art called 100 Faces of War. It's going to be exhibiting October 10th through December 30th, and we're really hoping to do a lot of great stuff during that exhibition. It's such an honor to be collaborating with Smithsonian with this exhibition. It's going to be really poignant. I hope people are going to be able to get in, see it. If not, we're going to do some great virtual stuff. But you will be offering some sessions during that time, and we'll be sure to promote that to all of our viewers and all of our members out there. So without further ado, I would love to do a breathing exercise with you. So let's see, what should we do? How do I start?
So my tip for the breathing exercise before we do it is going to be, number one, we're just going to do like 3 deep breaths. I want to keep it short so that it's a real takeaway. I don't want people to feel like they need 15 minutes to meditate and 30 minutes to do yoga. You can't do that when you're in line at the bank. What can you do in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. When you need that little release or that little break to kind of catch yourself. And my second tip is that if you forget how many seconds we counted for, or whatever, the point is you want to exhale for longer than you inhale.
Got it.
It's the opposite of hyperventilating, right? When we're anxious and we're like, everything's about the inhale.
Yeah.
We're doing the opposite so that we can kind of trick our body, our brain. Oh, we're not breathing so fast anymore. We must be okay now, right? So I'm just going to, if anybody's watching along and wants to try it with us, get comfy, get your feet supported on the floor. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths in through your nose. Hold it for a second, and as slow as you can, out your mouth. And it's great because you can really feel like your shoulders go down when you exhale. You really feel that relaxation when you really take it slow. So we'll do 2 more. And hold it for a second, and then exhale. And 1 more time. Hold it and exhale. There you go.
That was awesome. Thank you very much. And I see we have some questions over here. I want to make sure that we allow our guests to be able to, our viewers to ask the questions. Let's see. I'm so relaxed. What are we talking about? I was kidding. That was great. I loved it. We have some people speaking French. Oh, this is great.
Oh, wow.
Let's see. When is the Art for Warriors meeting?
Yes, we are still going strong virtually. Actually, it was right before I hopped on with you. So Thursday nights, virtual meeting. We start at 6:30 and we go till 8:00.
Fabulous. Let's see, what else do we have here? Aha. That's great. Okay, somebody answered. That's fantastic. So we're going to leave it there. Raquel, this has been awesome. I'm so ecstatic that we were able to get a chance to sit down here and relax, talk about art therapy and the importance of it, no more so than right now when everybody's going through a pandemic. Good Lord. And with that being said, I do want to take a moment and just thank all of our viewers tonight for joining us on Facebook and YouTube Live. We hope our viewers will join us in October as we delve into Smithsonian's traveling exhibition, 100 Faces of War, exhibiting October 10th this year until December 30th at the Coral Springs Museum of Art. In the meantime, keep an eye out for our next interview in September when we chatted up with local artists and industry leaders. We just want to say thanks again to you, Raquel, to all of our viewers for joining the Coral Springs Museum of Art's Chat It Up. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.